It's never been easier to launch a fashion e-commerce platform, and it's never been harder to scale one. Customers can flirt with you, but it's very difficult to get them to commit to you. It can vary from as low as 25 to 30% to as high as 50 to 70% for certain platforms, right? So that's how bad it is. In the earnings call, when Jeff Bezos was asked what happened and why did you get it wrong, he said that if you think this was a big failure, we have much bigger failures cooking in our in our innovation engine. The insight is that you cannot succeed big if you don't take big, bold bets. And when you're taking big, bold bets, you don't necessarily know you're going to land or not. Hence, to solve fashion, we lighted up our live stores from store direct to consumer. Sounds easy, very complicated. Very complicated. I understand a lot of social media platforms have tried to do social commerce in the past, but it's never taken off in a big way because...
Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk eCommerce, the podcast where we have real conversation, no fluff, with the leaders shaping e-commerce in the Middle East. I'm your host, Anurag Byala. If you operate in fashion e-commerce in GCC, you already know how brutal the category is. Returns eating margins, sizing problem, seasonal swings, taste shifting every season, and a customer base that behaves nothing like Europe or India or US. Today's episode is special because we are sitting down with someone who is not just operating, he is defining this space. We are going behind the scenes of one of the fastest growing fashion platform in the region, and we are going to talk about what it actually takes to build something like this in the GCC. This is inside story of how 6thStreet is winning in GCC fashion. My guest today is someone whose career reads like a masterclass in commerce. He has led digital businesses across India, China, Southeast Asia, Europe, and now he's in the GCC. He has built businesses ground up, businesses like Flipkart, and scaled multi-dollar ecosystem at Amazon. And today he runs one of the fastest and most talked about fashion platform in this region. Please welcome the CEO of 6thStreet, Vivek Rajukumar. Welcome, Vivek. Welcome to Let's Talk eCommerce. It's an honor to have you today with us, and it's a pleasure that I'm sitting next to you. Before we get into the real discussion, just want to know your experience working in Dubai. Since you have worked in different geographies, Europe, Southeast Asia, India, and China, right? So when you wake up in Dubai, does this region still surprise you, or it feels like a home to you now?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. To answer your question, I think Dubai is home. It's my second stint in Dubai. I was here from 2019 to 21 when I was working with the Landmark Group, and now for the last 15 months, I've been working with the Apparel Group, heading the digital business for Apparel Group. Dubai is home. Having said that, there is always something happening here. There are always new things to look forward to. There isn't a day that goes by when I don't have new and exciting problems to solve. So it always keeps surprising how fast it's evolving and how bold and ambitious the vision of the leadership here is, and how things evolve here, and how also the one thing which I think really differentiates Dubai for me is how fast you can move.
Yeah.
There's a lot of empowerment, both in terms of the country's leadership as well as in terms of the entrepreneurial culture that this country has embodied, which allows and which enables the leaders in this region to take bold bets, move fast, and keep iterating.
Absolutely. No, it looks amazing when you see the disruption happening in the e-commerce space. And specifically when we talk about fashion commerce, that's an exciting field. And I always wanted to do a masterclass specifically on fashion, right? And then I couldn't think of anybody else but you. So let's start with the basics of 6thStreet, the DNA of 6thStreet, since fashion commerce in GCC, it's a pretty old industry. Namshi launched in 2011, followed by Unas, and then a lot of global brands they entered the market, right? But still in this crowded space, where do you see 6th Street, and what is the gap that you're trying to fill here?
Sure. I think I always say this, that having worked across so many different places, Europe, China, India, and the Middle East, I see that GCC is the one place which is the most competitive market for fashion commerce. Specifically because we welcome everyone in this region, right? So we have the Americans who've brought in the American flavor of large assortment direct from US. We have the Chinese players, a bunch of them, all of whom bring a lot of value-oriented selection direct from factories and manufacturers from China. And then we have the local players as well, a lot of whom are focused on their respective niches, right? There are people who are focused on luxury. There are people who are focused on sports and so on. The one gap that we saw as Apparel Group was that we were the largest retailer in the region for premium fashion brands, for catering to the quality conscious consumers. And we saw that was a gap in the market, and hence 6th Street was envisioned and conceptualized as a digital arm of Apparel Group that can bring our portfolio of 80 plus international brands to consumers in the region who are highly brand conscious and quality conscious. That's where we started. Having said that, over time, 6th Street has grown a lot, and we've now got about 1,000 plus brands on our platform. And today we are the crown jewel of Apparel Group and also the pride of GCC, bringing a huge range of fashion brands direct to consumers.
Amazing. So I would congratulate you for the success of the brand. And personally, I am a great fan of 6th Street, and my wife, she just keeps shopping from 6th Street. So
that's what we love here.
Yeah, of course. And she's a great fan. I mean, the overall experience while you're shopping on the 6th Street app, it's amazing. So big congratulations to you.
Thank you.
This brings me to another question. When I talk to a lot of retailers and founders of e-commerce brands, I see fashion as a punishing category. It's a brutal category, right? On one side, you have high returns, and then seasonality, the behavior of the shoppers, it keeps changing. And while I was doing my research in my doctorate, I did research on consumer psychology in fashion e-commerce. So I was talking to a lot of digital shoppers, and to me it feels like the understanding and the expectation of digital shopper in GCC is very different from let's say countries like US and European region. At the same time, I believe the learning that a lot of e-commerce brands are bringing from these regions is not relevant anymore. I mean, it's a different region altogether, right? So you sit in this brutal category of fashion. What do you think about the category in general, and what is your take on that?
Sure. So I would say that fashion it's never been easier to launch a fashion e-commerce platform, and it's never been harder to scale one. I say it's easy to launch because it's one of those categories where you need relatively low capital expenditure, and today the tech stack required to launch an e-commerce website or app is all available out there as a plug and play for you.
True.
Plus, you need relatively less investment in inventory because it's also relatively lower ASP, selling price category, compared to some of the other categories like furniture or electronics. So it's easy to get started. The complication or challenge is how do you really scale the business? Because as you said, there are 3-4 things that differentiate fashion, which makes it very difficult. Number one, returns in fashion can be brutal. If you don't meet the consumer expectation, then your returns can shoot through the roof, and it'll completely disrupt your unit economics. Number two, it's an impulse category, which means that you need to be visible to consumers all the time.
Absolutely.
And hence, your reliance on paid media is relatively higher compared to any other category. And when it comes to paid media, whether it is platforms like Meta, Google, Snap, all of them are they have more and more people competing for customers' attention every year, and the rates are only going up.
Yeah.
So it is very challenging to acquire customers efficiently. But last but not the least, I think it is easier to acquire customers and get them to try you once. It's much tougher to retain them.
Absolutely.
And you can't build up, customers can flirt with you, but it's very difficult to get them to commit to you. And to build a profitable business, you need customers to commit to you.
Yeah.
Now, this is where fashion gets very tough. People think that I'll pour in the money and acquire the customers and they'll stick with you. Oftentimes it doesn't happen because the first purchase might be driven by a deal or a discount, and then that customer may never come back to you. And that's where your unit economics completely get spoiled. And most platforms figure out over a period of time that their cost of customer acquisition is higher than their cost and the lifetime value of customers. And that's not a sustainable value proposition. Which is why fashion e-commerce is easy to start, very difficult to scale.
Right. And how do you manage that in 6thStreet? I mean, the lifetime value of the customer, as you mentioned, the profitability lies in the repeat orders, right?
Yes. So we pay a lot of attention to the customer journey. So we have a very strong rigor on the LTV metric, long-term value of customer value. And this has three components if you subdivide it, right? One element is what is the repeat rate of the customer. Second is what is the average order value of the customer. And third is what is the profit margin or contribution margin. Now, if you look at all the three elements, the toughest amongst the three is repeat rate. How do you get customers to repeat with you, especially if you have got the customer for the first time through a coupon or a first time purchase incentive? This is where for a customer to repeat with you, your first experience should be so wow and exceptional that they remember you, right? And number two, they also need to have another purchase for which you are relevant for them, which means your selection should be large enough for you to be able to cater to them for other purchase.
Makes sense.
And lastly, when they think of that purchase, they need to have you in the consideration set, which means you still need to be available and visible to the customer.
Right.
So these three are the key in driving repeat rate. So in 6thStreet, we make sure that we offer the most elevated experience to customers. So for us, our value proposition is built on a very strong, because we knew that it's a competitive market, we've built a very, very strong value proposition in terms of our delivery experience, which is the single largest part of any e-commerce. And therefore, we launched our flagship 60-minute delivery in UAE, 90-minute delivery in all the other 5 GCC countries. And that's a big differentiator. For consumers who experience it, it's like magic.
It is.
On top of that, we also pay a lot of attention to our in-app experience. Our app experience is also very addictive, right? So we really delight in customers spending a lot of time on our website. We track our session time very closely, and we like the fact that a lot of customers spend a lot of time on our website. And we've built a lot of features over time which make our app experience very very aspirational, very intuitive, and very discovery led. That we inspire customers who come to our platform to spend time there. So this is how we solve repeat rate. And the second element of average order value is a function of how you can help the customer build their cart.
Sure.
To help build their cart, we help them intelligent recommendations on what else you can do. In fact, we recently launched a feature called Complete the Look, where if a customer is on one particular or selected one particular product, we give them ideas on what else can you pair with this product, what accessories, what else can you do, such that you can create a complete look, whether it is for a official occasion or for a party occasion and so on. So this is the second way in which we improve the AOV. The third element, which is the contribution margin, can also be very tricky because it's very easy to get customers by throwing away discounts, but that's not a sustainable deal.
True.
And hence, to drive contribution margin, again, there are two parts to it. Either you need to get customers to buy more full price items with you, which is a function of experience, and hence it goes with what I said about repeat rate. But also the other important element is how do you bring down your variable cost or the cost per transaction or cost per delivery. So this is where we've built our own in-house logistics fleet. We call it Vamos. And today, 90% of the shipments we deliver to customers, we do it through our own delivery fleet. Now, this is a big, unique advantage that we have because this allows us to keep our costs very closely under control. It allows us to not have a per shipment cost. Rather, it allows us to keep improving our fleet utilization and keep improving our productivity over time and keep bringing down our cost. So this is how we've optimized our LTV over time.
Sure.
Having said this, we didn't talk about CAC, but there are
I was about to come there.
the other element that you can solve for is how do you reduce your cost of customer acquisition?
Yeah. Especially on a Android or a iOS app, right? It's a different ball game altogether.
That's right. So you're absolutely right that the behavior is very different on iOS and Android. The costs are very different. The conversion rates are also very different across iOS customers and Android customers. So, but the common factor in cost of customer acquisition is whether your customer is looking for you or whether they're stumbling across you. So if you have built a strong brand equity with a very good word of mouth where others recommend you to customers and the people who have experienced you once immediately looks for you or searches for you, then you have a very strong proposition to reduce your CAC. So the more branded searches you have as a platform, less your CAC. Right. So that's what we focus on. So we focus a lot on building our brand and building desirability for our platform, which allows us to reduce our cost of customer acquisition.
That also means, you working on other branded keywords, the brands that you're selling on 6th Street. So for example, if I'm searching for Tommy, for example, 6th Street is up there on all the search engines, or is it just the 6th Street as a brand?
Yeah. So as I said, today we sell 1,000+ brands, and there are brands which are for which 6th Street is today the destination. What I mean by that is for that brand, you will find the best and the biggest assortment in some cases the freshest assortment only on 6th Street.
I see.
That makes us a destination. Now these are the brands where we would actively bid on the keywords and make sure that when the customer is searching for that brand, then 6th Street comes up and we become the top searched keyword for that. Having said that, we don't do this for all 1,000 brands because there could also be brands in that portfolio where that brand itself has a very strong direct presence to consumers, right? And if that is the case, we don't compete with each other. So aside from 6th Street, we also run our own brand.coms, right? Or 15 different brand.coms. And we are very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to compete against each other, right? And we have a very clear philosophy.
Complement the strategy.
Exactly. It should be complementing each other rather than competing with each other. So we have very clearly created a framework and a mental model to make sure that we pitch 6th Street in some cases and we pitch the brand.com in some cases. It depends on what the nature of the query is and what the customer is looking for.
Makes sense. And I can't agree more. I mean, as a user, this 60-minute delivery in fashion is mind-blowing, right? And the stickiness that you're talking about, that keeps us coming back to the app, looking for, promotions, looking for different options, which is not generally available on brand.com, which also enforces us to come to the app again rather than going to brand.com, because the assortment, the catalog is amazing. And on top of that, if you get that delivery promise, I mean, all the check boxes are ticked already. So yeah, it's amazing to see how, the brand is growing and the way you are taking this forward. It's phenomenal. But that brings me to another interesting conversation. Since you come from different, experiences across different countries, a shopping behavior in Europe might be very different from China or let's say India, right? And same goes for GCC. So when you started operating 6th Street, was there something that you unlearned, and then again, there were few learnings that are very, very specific to GCC that you would like to share with us?
Sure. I think if you go back to the history of e-commerce, the playbook for e-commerce was invented by Amazon and Jeff Bezos, who created what is very famously called the virtuous flywheel. And the virtuous flywheel says that customers will always want more selection, lower prices, faster delivery.
Yeah.
Now this holds true, and in my experience of working in across different countries, different continents, it's always held true. So that is a strong belief built in anyone who operates in e-commerce. Sure. One thing which was interesting about GCC was, as I said, it's a very, very competitive market. It's highly cluttered.
Yeah.
And therefore, I realized that, and just to draw the contrast, in Europe, Amazon's second competitor was 1/10 of Amazon size.
Wow.
So that's how big we were, and we didn't really have to compete.
Yeah.
We
It's
just
like
had to
leagues apart.
leaps apart, right? Similarly, in India, when I was with Flipkart, there were two competitors. There was Flipkart and Amazon, but it was still a duopoly. It was not as if we were competing with the Chinese and multiple other players. So that's where GCC is very different. So I realized that one thing I have to do differently here is that I have to build a very sharp and distinct positioning for 6thStreet if we have to stand out in the consumer's mind. Otherwise, it's a very noisy space. So to do this, I unlearned one element of the virtuous flywheel, right? So I decided that, we have to focus on our right to win, and we have to focus on where we can do an exceptional job versus doing an okay job across all three, because then we will never be able to catch up to the Amazons or knowns of the world.
Yeah.
So this is where we decided that we will position ourselves as the most elevated experience platform for high quality, brand conscious consumers. So that's our differentiation, which means that one of the things I did in the last 1 year is actively delist a lot of brands which were having high returns, low product ratings, and were not necessarily delivering the best experience to consumers.
Okay. And they were just there sitting on your catalog.
They were there. They were even selling. Many of them were even selling. But those sales or those customers were the ones who were not coming back to us.
I see.
Because the experience was not great.
Okay.
Either the product quality was not great, or the shipping reliability was not great, and therefore the delivery experience was not great, or there were many cancellations resulting in loss of customers. So I realized that instead of trying to be everything to everyone, which Amazon can afford to be in Europe, we had to be very targeted and very sharp in terms of our positioning. So we decided we'll delist all of these brands. We actually let go of a lot of these brands which were not giving the right experience, and we brought in a lot of new brands which were actually a notch up in terms of their quality and brand value. So what we did is, we if you ask me today, we are very different from other marketplaces in the region in the sense that we are not an open marketplace. We are a gated marketplace. We have very, very strong criteria on gating, and we only invite specific set of brands to join our platform.
Got it.
So from a place where we had a BD team who would go out and get anyone out there, today we have a queue of brands lining up asking for an approval to be on the platform. So we have turned that around. At the same time, doing this without elevating experience would have backfired. So that is why at the same time we also worked on elevating our customer experience. So one element of that was the delivery promise of 60-minute delivery, but we also brought in a very unique. We also saw a unique insight. Unlike Europe, where there are very strong product quality regulations, and therefore it's a high trust market. Customers don't have to think twice about whether this will be a genuine product when they order.
Yeah.
In GCC, the regulations are still evolving, and therefore, and a lot of the digital purchases are being shipped from countries outside the GCC, whether it is China, Turkey, and so on. So the reliability of the quality of the product is not always there. Understanding this insight, we launched what we call authenticity promise. So we call it the 6thStreet promise, which has 3 elements: 100% authentic products, price assurance, which means that if you won't find the same product at a low price elsewhere. If you do, no questions asked, we match that. And on-time delivery.
Okay.
Always on time or on us. So if you're not on time, then we take the shipping fee back. Right.
Amazing.
So there's a very bold promise.
Yeah.
But we launched this promise across our platform and to all customers. And it's been a game changer for us. The kind of trust it built, and for consumers who want stress-free shopping, who want reliable shopping, it actually attracted the most premium, most quality conscious, most experience conscious consumers to our platform.
Right.
So that's how we've differentiated. And this is the one thing which I had to unlearn when I came to GCC.
Amazing. And I think that's the cheat code. I mean, the way you have connected the dots and the operational efficiency that you guys are producing. I mean, it's amazing. Let's go behind the scenes. As a user, I understand, the moment I place an order, some magic happens and the product is at my doorstep, right? But most of our viewers are actually the e-commerce founders and, people who are operating in the e-commerce space. So they want to understand from you, on what happens as soon as an order is placed. I mean, how you are able to pull this off.
Sure. I talk about while there is process vary across different fulfillment channels. I'll talk about the 60-minute delivery because that's
Yes.
the most magical element of
Absolutely.
what we do.
Yes.
So I think the moment a customer places an order on the 60-minute delivery, which is a chargeable service, the order management system that we have routes it to the store in the mall that is closest to that customer.
Okay. So the fulfillment happens from the store, or you have
Yes.
like different models?
Yes. So the fulfillment happens from the store,
Okay.
not from the warehouse.
Interesting.
And it's a very unique design that we created.
Interesting.
Because we figured that our right to win and our differentiator is that we have such a large store footprint. So large that in a single mall, we would often have 30 plus stores, which allows us to create malls as hubs for our operation.
Makes sense.
And that's what we've created. And imagine we've created a proprietary in-house technology, which we call the EXAR technology, where we can geofence customers within a certain radius across every hub, which is every mall.
Okay.
And there could be customers who are in an area which is overlapped by multiple circles or multiple radiuses across different malls, and therefore they get selection from all the different malls. And that's how the magic of this works, right? So now when a customer places an order, our order management system immediately picks up the order, routes it to the store in the mall, which is closest to the customer. And then the moment the order is surfaced through a handheld device for the picker who is in the store, and the picker immediately picks it up and processes it or packs it within 15 minutes.
Okay. And this is your in-house
everything
team.
in-house. Everything in-house. The moment the picker processes it, by the time the picker is ready with the packing, the runner would reach there magically, pick up the product from there, go to a collection point at the hub, and drop it off to the rider, who then picks it up from there and delivers to the customer.
And the rider is again 6thStreet rider.
Yeah. So when we started, everything was in-house. Over a period of time, we are also exploring partners who can offer the same level of service. So for us, the SLA and the service level is the most important thing. So now it's a combination. But yes, I think as a concept, everything was in-house, right? Now, the beauty of this is that everything works like clockwork in the back end. Everything is knit together through a very, very strong technology. Now, you could argue that, but this is also done in dark stores by a lot of platforms. Yes, and that's true. But if you see, it's only done for categories like grocery.
Yes.
In some cases, electronics.
Absolutely.
It's easier. Why? Because those are categories where the top 10% of SKUs will account for 70-80% of sales.
Yes.
Right? Because they are head categories. Fashion is very, very different. Fashion, what is fashionable for you is very different for me. And therefore, it's a tail category, which is why nobody has been able to solve fashion through dark stores. This was the unique insight we had. And hence, to solve fashion, we lighted up our live stores from store direct to consumer. Sounds easy, very complicated
Very
to
complicated,
do. Very
for
complicated.
Sure.
So this is where the might of apparel group came in, because we have
Is the network of apparel group that you are leveraging and you're doing the magic.
That's right. So we have about 1,000 stores of apparel group, which are connected now direct to consumers across 9 cities in 6 countries, which are offering this 60-minute delivery. In UAE, 90-minute delivery in all the other 5 countries. So it's a very, very well orchestrated operation knit together by our proprietary in-house technology, which we call the EXAR technology, which allows us to geofence and reach customers with a high degree of precision and reliability. So a lot of customers, while we promised 60 minutes, a lot of customers actually end up getting their product in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and they find it difficult to believe that in fashion it's possible. And these are high fashion items, right?
Yes.
So that's been the brilliance of what happens in the back end for us.
Amazing. That sounds magical for sure. Let's talk more about technology. Since you mentioned about order management system and your entire tech stack being managed in-house, what kind of technology do you use? And is it a combination of in-house versus partner-driven, or is it primarily in-house?
Yeah. So we have a very strong technology team, which we are very proud of. And that's one of the things that we foresaw very early, that if we want to compete in the digital commerce space with digitally native players and e-commerce pure plays, we need to have a very strong in-house technology team. Having said that, technology is our most constrained resource, and we have thousands of ideas and asks, and we always have limited resources on technology to implement that. Which means that we are very selective about what we decide to build in-house. So our mental model is that any capability where technology is the differentiator, we will build in-house. For example, the EXAR technology.
Sure.
But in any situation where the technology is an enabler and the differentiator is more the operating model or the underlying logic, there we leverage partnerships with third-party technology vendors. So it's a combination that we do, and it's a hybrid tech stack that we have. Having said this, we also, with the 30 years of aggregated experience that we have in retail as a group, we have also built a lot of IP in-house, which we believe can be leveraged or can be useful for other players who want to, who aspire to build a scale like us. So over time, we also plan to build our own technology IP that we can potentially offer to non-competing businesses as well.
Sure, makes sense. And we spoke about returns, right? And it's a high percentage in the fashion space, right? So if you can share some light on how do you handle returns within 6th Street?
Yeah, I think returns has been probably the bane of fashion e-commerce all over the world. And with my experience of working across different parts of the world, I can assure you it's always tough across the world. It can vary from as low as 25 to 30% to as high as 50 to 70% for certain platforms, right? So that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
And this is the one place where, as 6th Street, we've differentiated ourselves a lot. In the last 1 year, all the things that I talked about making ourselves a more quality-conscious, brand-first platform, we've managed to bring down our returns to early double digits, which is one of the lowest and unheard of.
I haven't
unheard of in the industry.
Yeah,
exactly.
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it yet.
We've reached there, and that's one of the reasons.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why our net is very healthy compared to our gross, which is not the case in the industry. That also allows us to spend more on marketing and acquire customers, because usually you acquire customers on GMV and then your net, your returns brings down your net. So this has not been a challenge for us. But I must say that there are 3-4 things we do consciously to bring down the returns. So number one, we have very strong guidelines on how we create our imagery for products. We always keep it realistic. A lot of platforms or websites make the mistake of trying to make the imagery very attractive, but when you get the product, it looks very different. And then there's a huge mismatch in consumer expectations.
True.
So we've been lucky to have great products, and therefore our imagery and our product matches. And we always make sure that the customer, we deliver what we promise to the customer. So that's number one. Number two, we launched the price assurance promise as part of our 6th Street promise, and this came out of the insight that a lot of customers tend to raise returns because they found a better price elsewhere. So the moment customer starts a return, we immediately prompt them and remind them that in case it was about price, don't worry, we have you covered. We have this price assurance promise, and we will cover you there. And therefore, there's no reason for customers to now initiate that.
Sure.
And the third thing, which is probably the biggest game changer for us and for others, is you see a lot of customers return items because they've changed their mind. This is especially true for orders that you get ahead of a weekend, and which is getting delivered after the weekend. Over the weekend, the customer may have gone, especially in this region, to a mall. They may have purchased something, and then they realize that, okay, now I no longer need it.
Yeah.
This is where the speed of delivery matters a lot. And that's why we have 60-minute to 90-minute delivery. Where we cannot offer it because that assortment is not available, we then offer same day or next day delivery. So our delivery is so fast that we don't give enough time for the customer to change their mind.
I see.
So the combination of these factors have ensured that our returns are the best in the industry and kept very, very low.
I see. Interesting. I was talking to Mr. Shailin Shukla, who is a supply chain veteran in the region, and we were discussing returns, from a supply chain perspective. Interesting thing that he shared with me is the fact that, the moment you start moving towards the end of the month, you start experiencing more returns, because that is when people are waiting for their next salary to come in, and that is when they want to, they want to buy, especially on the cash on delivery orders. So that was the trend that he was actually analyzing, wherein the first 10 days of the month, the return percentage is still okay, manageable, and the moment you start moving towards end of the month, the return shoot up.
I have a slightly different perspective. I agree with the observation, but I'll give a different reason why this happens. So if you see end of the month, the pay week comes in, the payday comes in, which is a big thing in this region. Now, the moment the pay week comes in, you will see most retailers or most e-commerce platforms going on some kind of a sale, a pay week sale, payday sale. It's a norm in the region. Imagine if you've bought something and someone else is on sale, that same thing might now have a different price. And this is where the importance of price assurance comes in, right? And that's why it is reflected in this. So we realized this insight and we proactively corrected it.
Right.
Now, having said all this, I think there is also, I must acknowledge the advantage that we have. So the advantage we have is we also sell a lot of brands direct from our brand stores, and therefore the quality of the product is assured, not from some warehouse dusty and coming from other countries. So we deliver very high quality products. So that's number one. Number two, a lot of our products, because they're also available in stores, the customers could potentially try them out. So we do see customers who add items to cart, then they go to the store, try them out, they like it, and then they place order. So that way, they may also be more accurate in terms of their size and weight. So this is the advantage of being an omnichannel retailer, who proactively gets customers to experience both channels. And we've been very clear as apparel group that we are customer obsessed. We don't care whether they purchase online or offline. We are happy for them to purchase in either channel. We want to give them the best experience and a most seamless experience across both channels.
Right. So this is one consumer psychology, especially from a digital shopping perspective, that that's one of my takeaway from this podcast. But do you see any other behavior when it comes to digital shoppers in, let's say, other markets versus 6th Street shoppers who are shopping online?
I think one thing I would say which is very different about GCC, which surprised me, and then I'll come to 6th Street as well, is the impact of payday. So it seems logical that yes, when you get your pay, you tend to purchase more, but the scale of the payday effect in this region is far bigger than what I've seen in the other regions. Now I see there are probably two reasons for it. So number one is retail penetration in this region is relatively quite high, right? And therefore people tend to spend a lot on retail, and in the middle of the month they tend to, let's say, run out of their balances. We also see the payment failure rates spike during the middle of the month. A lot of that has now been corrected through the BNPL players and BNPL phenomenon, buy now pay later. So which is why in this region I see a distinct preference towards BNPL, even for a low value purchase like fashion, whereas in a country like India or Europe, BNPL was very popular for high value purchases like appliances, but not for fashion. Right? So that's one difference. The second is that pay week or pay day is a larger share of the total sales, and therefore that period becomes very important for you to garner your market share. Right? So both these factors are very different. Now specifically talking about 6th Street, I think in 6th Street, and if I see, and this is also coming from my experience of where I worked in the other markets, in both in India and Europe. In India, I worked with Flipkart. In Europe, I worked with Amazon. Both are horizontal e-commerce players. Now, the difference is that in a horizontal e-commerce player, by definition, you want to be everything to everyone. Right? And hence, a lot of your shoppers, a lot of your consumers are actually in the mass segment. Whereas in 6th Street, we actually cater to a more premium, quality conscious, brand conscious consumer who is also willing to pay a premium for the experience. Now, I talked about 60-minute delivery earlier, and I also mentioned it's a paid service. There is a shipping fee for that service, and not a significant one. And yet, 80% of consumers who have an option to choose that service over a free next day delivery, they still choose the service. Which is something which is very distinct about 6th Street shopper. In India, in Europe, I have seen a very clear preference for free shipping, even if they have to wait one day. Whereas here, the customer is willing to pay, right? So it's a more premium, more experience conscious consumer who is willing to pay a premium for a great service.
I completely agree, because The way the entire e-commerce industry is moving towards 15-minute delivery in let's say grocery, and then the customer expectation in other category is also changing. And you mentioned about the variety of payment options. So while I was doing my research, another thing which came up is the payment method. You mentioned about buy now pay later being used in fashion, and it is true across other categories as well. But let's say options like at STC Pay for Saudi, or having a Apple Pay or a Samsung Pay for Android user, it actually facilitates a lot of payments which otherwise a lot of brands I see struggling with, because they have those 2-3 standard options and the consumer is not able to find the right option. For example, if I'm on the move and if I have an Android phone, I would prefer paying from Samsung Pay. I don't have cards available with me,
Sure.
And similarly, for Arabic speaking audience outside UAE, it is actually a must have to have your content in RTL, Arabic language for all these audiences, and that also reduces a lot of friction online, right?
Yeah. So I think Arabic is a must. It's so obvious that I probably didn't speak about it, but yes, I think if you see in the GCC markets, except for UAE and Qatar, where we see a higher penetration of English language users on our app, in all the other markets, it's Arabic is a primary language, and hence that's a must. There is no question about it. You need to have very strong Arabic version or Arabic language translation of all the In fact, I would argue that there are cases where we should have an Arabic first approach to be able to cater to the customers with the right experience. On the payment methods, there are two elements in payments which are slightly different elements and yet equally important. One is convenience and second is affordability. So BNPL actually caters more to the affordability element, where the consumer has an aspiration, but their budget doesn't allow for that, and therefore BNPL allows them to have that cater to that aspiration without having to shell out everything at one go, and over a period of time they can do. And that's where BNPL has been a big solve in the region across categories. Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, for that matter, on the other hand, has been a great convenience solve for customers. And increasingly, on a platform like 6thStreet, we actually see the Apple Pay penetration growing very fast. And which also is a function of the kind of consumers we have, who are very experience-led, who also care deeply about convenience. And therefore, we see those methods adding a lot of value. On top, I would say that these payment options or methods are now becoming a hygiene requirement for any website to have, not just for traditionally, you would have e-commerce pure plays or larger marketplace platforms have this, while the D2C sites or brands.com did not used to focus as much. But today, it's becoming hygiene across platforms. And that's the way we are looking to bring all payment options to customers, to meet our vision of seamless convenience for customers across all channels.
Right, makes sense. And you must be experimenting and innovating within 6thStreet with a lot of ideas, and I'm sure your team must be providing a lot of feedback on what can be improved. And I've seen a lot of leaders talking about success stories and all the good things about the brand, but they generally refrain from talking about failures and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So from a 6thStreet perspective, any bet that didn't landed well within the ecosystem, and any learnings that you have from your experience?
Sure. I'll start with one anecdote to answer this. One of the big bets that Amazon had placed long back was the Fire Phone. And it was one of the biggest failures in Amazon's history. And in the earnings call, when Jeff Bezos was asked, what happened and why did you get it wrong? He said that if you think this was a big failure, we have much bigger failures cooking in our in our innovation engine, right? The insight is that you cannot succeed big if you don't take big bold bets. And when you're taking big bold bets, you don't necessarily know you're going to land or not, right? If so, then it's not a big ball bet, right? You are taking bets.
True.
So to answer your question, 6thStreet, iterate, we experiment a lot, way too much, and there are many things that fail. But I'll pick one example, one recent example to illustrate this point. And we are very proud of our failures because we learn from it and we keep iterating. So the recent one is when ChatGPT became popular, and it became very evident that conversations was the way to go. I'm a strong believer that consumer behavior tends to evolve across different channels and different media, and therefore we believe that we should have our own chatbot as well. So because in commerce today, the predominant method is either browsing or searching.
Yes.
But if search itself is evolving into conversations, why wouldn't it in the context of commerce? So we launched our conversational AI chatbot. We call it the Fashion Assistant in Q4 of last year. And despite giving it enough, let's say, exposure, we found that the adoption was very, very low from customers. So you can call it that. In other words, it was a product failure for us. Now, we realized, however, we learned a few very key lessons, right? So the importance of failure, the good part about failure is you need to come away with lessons that you can implement. So number one, we realized that the latency or the performance was not up to the mark, right? Because we figured that the response time was too high for a customer to be okay with it, because the response times they are used to is what they will get in a ChatGPT or a Claude. So if you can't match that, then the consumer may not be willing to wait. So that's one lesson we took away. The other thing we realized was that context awareness is critical, right? Customer journey awareness, SLA awareness, or feature awareness. So there were many things. There were many things that our chatbot could do, but there were many things that our chatbot was not able to do. And this we could learn from the kind of questions that we were getting from customers. So we collated all that. Then we got the insights. Okay, these are all the things we need to solve for. Now, over time, we are actually improving it significantly. And now we are iterating and bringing newer versions, which are getting much better adoption. But we are still not there. We still have a long way to go. But we are very confident that we are learning so fast that we can get all those insights and incorporate all those things to make it a real, true differentiator for us, for our consumers. But without failure, there is no innovation. If you need to innovate,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
You've got to be ready to fail.
Amazing. That brings me to another question. I'm sure a lot of founders who are specifically operating in the fashion space reach out to you on LinkedIn and other networks and asking for, suggestions, advisory, etc. So what are the key advices that you would give to these young founders who are operating in the fashion space? Because the space looks exciting. I mean, everybody wants to do a fashion or apparel commerce business, right? But the truth is brutal, right? We spoke about it. So what is your advice to all these founders out there?
Yeah, I see a lot of founders because aside from platforms like LinkedIn, where I try to share my learnings, I am also on a platform called Growth Mentor, where entrepreneurs can reach out and book my time, which is very limited, but on weekends when I have the time.
Amazing.
So there I've coached or mentored, I would say, more than 50 plus founders across 20 plus countries.
Wow.
So I get to see a lot of, it's also my selfish interest to see what's the new innovations that are cooking in different parts of the world.
And is it only fashion or across multiple categories?
It's more broadly marketplaces. So I advise people more on digital commerce and specifically marketplaces, because that's where I see most founders struggling, because marketplace is very complex. There's always a chicken and egg problem, and therefore that's the most complex thing. So I like to help them on the most complex space.
Interesting.
So that's where I focus. Now, to address your question, the most common pitfall or mistake that I find founders make is they don't reflect deeply enough on what is the nature of business they are in. If I take fashion, you can either be in the business of building a brand, which means your value addition is to build desirability for the brand and be available in as many channels that are relevant for that brand to capture that desirability. On the other hand, you may be in a business of building a platform, a marketplace for brands and customers or users, And if that's your game, then your value lies in building trust on that platform and solving a pain point that the customer and the seller were not able to solve individually. So number one, you need to be very clear what business you are in. Are you?
Sure.
A lot of people are confused between,
Yeah.
what are they building? Are they building a brand? Are they building a marketplace?
True.
Because the two requires very different approach, mindset, and
Different
actions.
business model altogether.
Very different business model. So that's number one. Number two, I also find founders thinking that they get very passionate about an idea that appealed to them, which may be coming from their own skill set, or it may be coming from something new that they came across and they think it's beautiful. It's worked in some part else and they want to just plug it here. The problem with that approach is that the context can be very different in different parts of the world. And when you get very passionate about an idea and you launch it, and then you figure out, now how do I get my customers? You may not have done your basic research on what am I solving for the customer, right? So I see a lot of founders working forwards from an idea rather than working backwards from a customer. The most important thing is to start from a customer pain point.
Absolutely.
The best founders I've found are people who have worked in a domain for a certain period of time and discovered a unique insight or a pain point about a customer in that domain, which they now want to solve.
Got it.
What I always advise founders is, what is that unique insight that you have, which is not obvious to others, which you believe is true, but others don't necessarily believe.
Yeah.
And what is that, and how will you solve it in a better way?
Sure.
And there's never been a better time to do this than in the past, because with every technology change I have seen in my own lifetime, where the internet change and then the mobile technology, every technology change provides you an opportunity to rethink how business is done in a domain. So because every technology allows you to solve for constraints that existed in the previous era, and the constraints move to a new place, which is the new solve that you need to bring in. But it requires deep thinking and deep understanding on what is the pain point and how can you do it differently, leveraging something that exists today which may not have been there in the past.
Sure. Makes sense.
This combination is what makes founders really tick.
Makes sense. I think it is more about identifying the gap and how your business can fill that gap, or the problem the business can solve. But most of the time it is the other way around. You identify a product and then you look for a problem that the product can solve.
Exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Wrap up question, Vivek.
Sure.
What's next in 6th Street? We haven't spoken about AI as well.
Yeah.
So what is your plan in next 6 months to 1 year? What is coming up next in 6th Street?
Sure. So 6th Street has just come out of a fantastic year where we've had very high double-digit growth. We've had a great year. Having said that, we have a lot to do. We have a huge opportunity ahead of us. And I think the AI is so native to how we work that I never talked about it. We've leveraged AI right from machine learning in our algorithms, whether it is PLP algorithms or PDP algorithms, to the way we do demand forecasting and inventory planning. So those basic functions we've always done, but now we are leveraging it increasingly in consumer-facing features.
Okay.
For example, in the latest version of our app, we have now launched Try It On, which is virtual try-on feature, which is an amazing feature, which I believe will be a game changer for returns even to the next level now. And
are you digitalizing the size guides, size charts?
Yes.
To some extent?
Yes. That's
another problem in fashion. True, I mean, the size charts, it's always a pain.
That is always a pain, and that's a hygiene that we need to do.
Nice.
But specifically virtual try-on, I think, is a game changer because it allows you to visualize yourself even before you decide, what is best for you.
Amazing.
And along with that, we've coupled another feature called Complete the Look, which allows you to put the accessories that you can have along with the product so that it completes the look for you.
Nice.
While all of this is there, the most exciting thing that we are launching, or we have recently launched the new release, which is not yet active to all customers, is video commerce. Now, what I mean by this is now we have a section in our app, which is exactly like social media, where you can browse videos on fashion, on beauty, and the products which are featured in that video, you can shop as well.
You can shop.
right? So all of that directly in one app.
Nice.
So this, I think, is a game changer, because this allows your aspiration and commerce to sit together in one place, right? I understand a lot of social media platforms have tried to do social commerce in the past, but it's never taken off in a big way, because when you're on social media, your primary intent is not shopping.
Sure.
Your primary intent is
to consume
content and entertain yourself, educate yourself, and so on. Whereas here, your primary intent is shopping, and hence I believe this is a game changer. So that's one of the most exciting things I'm looking forward to personally. Aside from that, I would say that as a apparel group, we've really brought our might together now. Earlier, we used to have two different apps, one for loyalty called the Club Apparel. App, and then we had a separate app for shopping called 6thStreet app. Now we've merged the two. We've brought our Club Apparel loyalty program inside 6thStreet, and that way customers can earn, burn, redeem everything to all their points in one place, without any hassle of going to different platforms. Everything in one place in a one seamless experience.
Amazing.
So we've really bringing together the true might of an omnichannel group in one seamless experience for our end customers. And that to me is the epitome of what it takes to be a true omnichannel player.
Absolutely.
And play to your strengths to give the customers the best experience. And our motto as Apparel Group is to exceed expectations every day.
Yes.
And this is our way of getting there.
Amazing. And I'm sure you are exceeding expectations every day. And looking forward to all these features. I think a lot more coming our way as a user, right? And congratulations once again for the success of the brand. And I believe this episode is a playbook for fashion commerce, and a lot of young founders and e-commerce brands who are looking to start fashion commerce or scale fashion commerce. This is going to be the masterclass for them. So Vivek, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity, Anurag. And it was a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Pleasure is all mine, Vivek. For everyone watching, if you got value from this one, please do comment on the video with your biggest takeaway and subscribe to the YouTube channel Let's Talk E-Commerce. Don't miss out the next conversation. You'll find us on YouTube, Spotify, and LinkedIn under Let's Talk E-Commerce.